Hello and welcome to today's show. Well, in this show, we are going to talk about radio journalism and its language. Now, tell me one thing. What comes to your mind when you hear the word radio? I know you must be, imagining something, an old radio set which you must have seen kept in the drawing room where your grandparents used to live. But with time, with new inventions of science, with technology, things have changed. Radio is now one of the most compatible medium, I would say. And in this age of competition, where television has taken most of the space of the media and the internet being the newest and the fastest one, radio has somehow taken a backseat. This is what the general people think. But people like us who are so very passionate about the medium, they know what is actually the charm of radio is. It's a kind of daily routine. Like the morning we get up, we brush our teeth, we take our breakfast. At the same time, one thing that we do is we switch on the radio. Why? Not for entertainment all the time, but for the news that we get. We get the news on the move. When I'm doing something, my household chores, or I'm getting ready for my office, or I'm driving, radio keeps me giving the information which is required to start my day. And there lies the beauty of this medium. Today we are going to talk about radio journalism, of course, and how we can take this journalism forward. And for that, for any kind of journalism, as you all must be knowing, language is so very important. So we'll be talking about radio language. Whenever something comes on radio, if you had if you had taken it a bit seriously, you must have noticed that it is very quick. It happens in the snap of a finger. But then why is it so? Radio doesn't have a visual effect. But then radio should broadcast things which are more elaborative. But no, we do not do that. We bring in packages which are easy to take, easy to digest, and easy to retain. So that is, the mantra of radio scripting. Radio journalism, radio news, radio entertainment programs, everything. It must be very, very to the point, interesting, common, and something where you feel that the person who is sitting on the other side of the radio is speaking my language. It doesn't matter whether the program is in English, in Hindi, in Bengali, or whatever vernacular language, but the treatment with the language must be same in all the cases. So whenever we talk about radio journalism or writing for radio, the first thing that comes to your mind is news. Now, in a, say, for example, 5 to 7 minutes news, we have politics, we have economics, the share market. We need to know what is the Sensex rate going on. We need to know what our captain MS Dhoni is doing. We need to know the Friday releases, everything. So it's a kind of a mixed bag. But if you carefully notice, you will find that the mixed bag is being presented to the listeners in such a manner that the listener feels that, oh, it's so comfortable, it's so smooth, and each information is coming with its own gravity, with its own importance to me, because I need that information. So whenever we are writing for radio, this is something we need to keep in mind. Radio being one of the oldest medium of communication, radio journalism roots back to at least the second decade of the 20th century. Since then, and at that point of time, radio was the sole player in the electronic medium. But now, if we see, we have so many other sources of information. So where does radio stand? Radio has its own niche audience. Radio has its own niche programs, and those programs are equally popular. People actually wait for those programs to happen. For example, I just give a comparative analysis of radio, television, and newspaper. For newspaper, we have to wait for the next day. For television, we are overloaded with information, right? But in radio, we just get what we want. So that makes radio different from the others. Right? Every medium has its own USP. USP of radio, if you ask me, it gives me exactly what I want. Nothing more, nothing less. So whenever we are talking about radio scripting, we need to understand that there are various kinds of radio programs. News, very important. I mean, the majority of radio programming consists of news. Even if you listen to the private FM channels, right? During their entertainment programs where they're playing request songs of their listeners, or they're sharing jokes, recipe, in between they're always giving information, because information, I mean, is something that we need, right? You see, the All India radio programs, they have a separate channel for the news, and at the same time they have made it a point that after each program they give a very brief news bulletin so that people can catch up with what's going on around them. And then we have the entertainment part, where we have programs for various group of audiences, which includes children, which includes senior citizen, which includes young people, which includes Generation Y, and which includes everybody, right? The entire demographic profile of the country or of the area where the radio signal is reaching is catered by the radio programs. With each program, the kind of language is different. But there are certain standardized disciplinary methods that we need to keep in mind when we talk about radio scripting, when we talk about writing a news on radio, or we talk about writing an entertainment program script, whatever, even if it is a drama. So if it is a drama, it has a lot of literary input in it. But if it is news, I mean, it must be very straight. I mean, there I will not get a chance to show how good my language is. It should be straight because it should go straight to the audience, right? So these are the basic things we need to keep in mind while we actually deal with radio journalism. Apart from that, this I must say every time I come for a session on radio, is that radio is not only a medium of communication, radio is something beyond that. Radio is passion. So you have to develop that passion. So in radio, what we do, we build a relationship with the language, with the vocabulary. We learn to, play with words. But if it is a news program, if it is a kind of information giving program, we need not play too much of tricky things with the words, because as I already said, it has to be straight and to the point. The language of news is always simple and precise. Why? Because news is a very serious item. In order to show how good I am in the language, or maybe that is my way, I make things a bit complex and present it, I might, in the process lose the essence of the news. It might, have a negative impact on my audience, which I actually cannot do. I am not supposed to do. So here what we need to do, we have to make it very precise, very simple, and very to the point, as if I'm talking to somebody. And without panic, though this is not a part of the written language, but at times, while we are presenting, we become very excited, we become very emotionally attached with the matter. No, that has to be kept aside. So it has to be straight, simple, to the point. Sometimes, to make the news item even more lively, we use bites. Say, for example, 6th of August is Hiroshima Day. So maybe a news reporter actually does a news capsule on that particular day, a black day of the world history, and takes bites from people who has got a lot of knowledge about that, about atom bombs, about the effect of Hiroshima attack, bombing attack on the people, on the generations. And, that bite makes the news even more credible, right? So here what we need to keep in mind, that we cannot take a very long bite. I mean, the interview should not be very long so that the people, they miss the link. It should be a small staccato kind of a thing where people can understand.
A bell tolls in the Japanese city of Hiroshima earlier today to mark the moment 70 years ago when an American uranium bomb exploded some 600 meters above the city. In a flash of blinding light and a blast wave the like of which the world had never experienced, thousands of people were killed instantly. Certainly in many of the post-war accounts, the human cost of Hiroshima and Nagasaki is often absent. Rupert Wingfield-Hayes has this report from Hiroshima.
This is one of the 5 pictures taken on that day, 6th of August 1945.
Keiko Ogura could be enjoying a quiet retirement. Instead, the 78-year-old Hiroshima survivor is determined to keep telling her story. When the atom bomb went off, Keiko was standing outside her parents' house on the outskirts of Hiroshima.
Of August 6th, Japanese time, the first atomic bomb hit an enemy target.
I was surrounded by a tremendous flash and blast. I was hit on the ground, on the road, and they become unconscious.
By the middle of the day, horrifically injured refugees were beginning to gather outside Keiko's house.
Their skin was peeling off and hanging. At first, I thought they were holding a rag or something, but that was really skin. All of a sudden, somebody took my leg and said, "Give me water." And then everybody started to say, "Water, water, water." Then I got the water from the well and then gave them. Most of them thanked and drank water, but a couple of victims, they drank water and then they died.
Many a times, they also do the correspondents, they also do a phone out thing. I'm reading the news sitting in the studio. I phone out somebody who's specialized in that particular subject and expertise, maybe during the budget session. I am reading the news, very simple news. It's no analysis of the budget. I'm just reading the budget, and I then call up some people who are very good with the budgetary session analysis. At the same time, I might even call up people who are on the street, going to office, homemakers, to understand what is the impact of this particular year's budget on them. Because whenever it is a budget, it has an impact directly or indirectly on all of us. So this kind of a things makes news more lively, more interesting. But then we also need to keep in mind that too much of interesting factors, makes the news lose its own credentials. So that also we need to keep in mind. As I was talking about news language, we need to keep in mind that we need to give the listeners the information in a very short time. Whether I'm writing in English, Hindi, Bengali, Assamese, or whatever language, right? My concept about language must be totally clear. So there shouldn't be any grammatical error. No, it's a suicidal case if it is going to be like that. Apart from that, it should be concise and more important, underlined, bold, and italics. It should be neutral, right? I might believe in something, I might not believe in something. I might like somebody, I might not like somebody, right? But I should not present it to my listeners. For my listeners, I am that radio set. So I have no personal likings, disliking, biasness there. So keeping the neutrality is very, very important. And then we need to keep in mind that radio news is not an area where we can be very, writes very flowery language, good English, good Bengali, good Hindi. No. We'll write exactly the professional ones. The other thing we need to keep in mind that many a times one word comes repeatedly. We do that. We do not use synonyms. That is important because when we use synonym, the meaning changes a little bit, and that's misguiding, misleading, right? So we need to keep this in mind. We need to keep in mind that if I'm using some foreign words, many a times we have to use some foreign words. Better we do not use it, or you use it as less as possible. But then again, if you're using it, we need to make it a point that we explain it. In a very concise manner, we explain it. We keep the numbers and figures to the minimum. That is important because numbers and figures, it's difficult to remember, retain. So that is one thing we need to keep in mind. But there are some areas where it becomes absolutely necessary. So we cannot avoid that at that particular area. But otherwise, we can say that we can put it in percentile. Right, say 50% of the students of that college boycott the class, something like that. Or we can say from next year, the bonus would be double. Like that. Instead of saying it in, very particular numbers, double, 50%, more than what we get, all these things are more easy to take. So we need to keep this in mind while we are dealing with radio stuff. Well, the other thing that we need to keep in mind is the grammatical part of it. And here we need to keep one thing in mind. It is always and always active voice. No passive voice. Please, no passive voice. For example, the flood destroyed the whole village. So it's a very simple word, very simple sentence, and straight to the point. We can also say that the village was destroyed by the flood. The entire village was destroyed by the flood. No, we do not get into all this kind of thing. We will make it very active, to the point. So keeping all these things in mind, we need to write the radio script. We were talking about news, but then there are other programs also which are a bit of, lighter in nature. Maybe a documentary, a docu-feature, audio docu-feature, which is a very, very popular format of radio programming. Radio drama, very popular, very popular. And then we have the live shows on radio. There also, these things actually are very important. So now I'm going to tell you certain points, which we need to keep in mind while we actually write for radio. And a day, I hope many of you would be, heard over the radio. But before that, let us listen to one very interesting news piece from the BBC Radio.
16 hours Greenwich Mean Time.
BBC World Service. The news, read by Pamela Crichton. Soviet officials have announced that 79 bodies have been recovered and nearly 320 people are missing after a Soviet cruise ship sank in the Black Sea on Sunday. The Iranians say their forces have successfully attacked an Iraqi radar installation and other targets in the Gulf. The Lebanese government has agreed on new peace proposals. A Soviet spokesman has denied allegations of a plot to incriminate the American journalist accused of spying.
Now let us come to the point. As I was telling you, I'll give you a few tips, easy to remember, and it is also very practical when you are actually writing or doing something for this particular medium. First of all, the importance of words. Those who are a bit interested in music, you must remember that Boyzone's song, words are all I have to take your heart away. So that's the mantra of radio, You need to keep that song humming all the time while you write your radio script, because the script is what makes the sense of information that you have gathered. If you cannot write it well, whether it is a news script or something else, the information, the hard work, the interview, everything will have no meaning. So we need to keep that in mind. We need to keep, the elements that would help the audience to understand what I want to convey. So this one thing is very important. The other thing is keep it short and simple, the KISS theory, right? Where it should be written in simple language and in short sentences. Use full stops, but don't use too much of semicolons and commas. No, because it makes things complicated. It makes things difficult, right? And if we keep on, rolling a sentence with punctuation marks and all, we forget where we start. So that is why, we can use a lot of full stops and then start a new sentence. It is easier for us to write and for the listeners to take and understand. We have to use everyday words. Everyday words doesn't mean that any word, but the way we talk to our seniors, the way we talk to our people, the sensible, decent and good words that we use in our day-to-day life. Because, in today's generation, when we say everyday word, they write something which is like the typical SMS language word. No, we will not use that in a public medium. So the words, choice of words rather, should be very categorically done. And it shouldn't rather have any complicated concept or confusing or ambiguity. The script should not rather have any ambiguity. One more thing, we have to avoid our relatives. Must be wondering, why should we do that? Here, relatives means relative clause. So, I give you an example. If I write that Amitabh Bachchan, who is considered to be the icon of Bollywood, was once rejected by All India Radio for not having a listener-friendly voice. So instead of writing such a long sentence with who and whom and all, I write Amitabh Bachchan, the Bollywood icon, was rejected by All India Radio for his voice. So simple, to the point, but the meaning is same. That is what we need to keep in mind. Relative clause actually, it interrupts the flow of the sentence. We learn a lot about relative clause during our high school days and all, but that we need to keep aside. Right? Concise and uninterrupted sentences are better written, better understood. And we need to keep in mind, it is not only understanding, it is also about retention, so that people can relate. I heard that particular news broadcaster in that particular channel. So that is how people will remember a radio presenter, a radio writer. So that is that is the niche style of yours that you need to develop. But in order to develop a niche style, you need to be very simple. Simplicity is very, very important. Well, the next point, that is how do I introduce my audio? So the script should offer the audience some introductions so that they can get accustomed with the topic. At the same time, this will also help in grabbing the attention of the audience. So a kind of, introductory 1 or 2 or 3 lines even is very, very important, so that people can listen to it and they get attracted towards the program, towards the news, and they understand what is it all about. That is more important. Another thing, as I have already said that to you, what I think, what I feel, what I believe doesn't matter at all. What is the real fact? That is what we need to cater to. So we have to actually deliver a very complete and fair report. Objectivity in journalism, it's a huge subject. I mean, sessions after sessions can be taken on this, but it is better we understand it in our day-to-day radio journalism work. So that is very important. And whenever we are doing an interview with a person, there are some people who do the scripting beforehand. There are some who do the scripting after they finish the interview. Both are equally okay. If you're comfortable with doing it before the interview, you have a guideline. If you're doing it after the interview, you actually have a lot of thing to write in your own manner. But you can take a midway path. You do some before the interview, some after the interview, because homework is absolutely necessary. I mean, there is hardly anybody who can actually go and talk and present something on radio, on stage, or anywhere under the sun without a proper homework. Fact checking is important. I have no right, no liberty to, say something on a public medium which is incorrect or partially correct, for that matter. No. So fact checking is absolutely important. We need to keep that in mind as well. The other thing that we need to keep in mind, that every media house has certain ethical rules and regulations, certain ideas that they follow, that they believe, whether my script is at par with that or not. So the ethical part of journalism is very important. First, the subject, the discipline, journalism has certain ethics which we need to follow as the disciples of the particular subject. At the same time, every business house, every media house for that matter, has certain policies, certain rules, certain regulations. We need to follow that also. And we need to keep in mind how we are starting. As they say, the first impression is the last impression. Same with every programming, in radio, how we start and how we end. Very important. So we need to work upon our opening lines. We need to work upon our closing lines. That is very important. But when it is a news, there is not much that we can do about it. But we need to work upon our voice modulation. We need to work upon our style, everything. As I was telling you, without homework, nothing happens. Nothing happens. And last but not the least, we need to keep in mind, after we write something, we read it out on our own. Is it making a sense to me, because when we write something, we feel, this is the best thing that can be written by anybody. But no, you have to be very, very impartial and then check whether it is making any sense or not. That is very important. Nowadays, with the television medium, every time, every news is available to us, and especially the internet. But then how are the other media surviving? The other media is surviving because of this sincere effort that they are giving to reach to their audience. Radio writing is simple, radio writing is difficult. It depends on you how you take it. But to be a good radio writer, one thing that you need to have is understanding of what is going around you. You need to have a lot of content, language, but more than anything else, the love for the medium, the passion for the medium is very important. We end this session with another audio clipping which I have got for you. And again, the more we listen to this kind of radio programs, news, or any other kind of programs, the more we get accustomed to it. We come closer to it, and it will make our path in the field of radio journalism even smoother. Thank you.
ये आकाशवाणी है। अब आप आशा निवेदी से समाचार सुनिए। संसद का बजट सत्र 21 फरवरी से शुरू होगा और 10 मई तक चलेगा। रेल बजट 26 फरवरी और आम बजट 28 फरवरी को पेश किया जाएगा। इस वर्ष का दिल्ली विश्व पुस्तक मेला इस महीने की 4 तारीख को नई दिल्ली के प्रगति मैदान में शुरू होगा। मेले का विषय है देसी स्वर, भारत के लोक और जनजातीय साहित्य का दर्शन। मेले में स्वामी विवेकानंद की 150वीं जयंती के मौके पर एक विशेष पेविलियन बनाया जाएगा, जिसमें उनके चित्रों और पुस्तकों को प्रदर्शित किया जाएगा। इसके साथ ही ये समाचार बुलेटिन समाप्त हुआ।